Welcome to episode 5 of What If, a Denver Gazette video series where we look back at the biggest what ifs in Colorado sports history. Today, I'm joined by Tyler King. Tyler, how's it going today?
Not too bad, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Today, we're doing a topic that many CU fans were sour about for a long time. I don't think they're as sour about it now with the hiring of Coach Prime, but I still think this moment sticks with CU fans, and I'm talking about Mel Tucker. A little background on this before we dive in. Before Mel Tucker, Mike McIntyre is the coach of CU. He takes over for John Embry, which was a complete disaster. Mike McIntyre has pretty much one good season. It's 2016, where the Buffs go 10-4, lose in the Pac-12 title game, and then get blown out in the Pac-12 title game, and then get blown out in the Alamo Bowl. But that's the best season CU's had in decades now. But they never really reached those heights again, and then he's let go in 2018 after CU starts 5-0 and then loses the next 6 games. He did some good things at CU, but it was definitely time. I was working in Boulder during this time, and there's the famous picture of him holding a buffalo at a press conference that he knew he was getting fired during his last press conference and kind of went off the rails. So after he's fired by Rick George, they zero in on Georgia defensive coordinator Mel Tucker. Tucker has experience in the NFL and NCAA coaching, and he seemed like a pretty good fit. It was a little bit of an out-of-the-box hire. No one really heard much about him when he was hired. And actually I believe the rumor broke during the SEC title game that Georgia was playing in that day. So Tucker is hired. Rick George was very, very excited about this hire. He thought it was a great fit. Tucker was bringing, again, new energy, very similar to what we're going through now, I guess, with CU, but a little bit different. So Tucker is 5-7 in his first season. They have some good wins, but, they're not bowl eligible yet. Tucker brings some new life into the program. His recruiting was very strong. He brought in some very strong recruits, but it didn't last long, as in February of 2020, Mel Tucker becomes Midnight Mel as he takes a plane to East Lansing, Michigan State, or East Lansing, to talk to Michigan State about their coaching job. He takes it. This is after that same night he spoke to CU boosters telling them that he was going to stay at CU. But he didn't, and he bolted after one season. He's only really had one good year with Michigan State. They were 11-2 in 2021. This year, they were ranked pretty highly going into the season and finished 5-7. He's also I don't know if he's the highest paid coach in college football, but he's up there. He signed a gigantic contract after they went 11-2. Michigan State is his school, so people kind of understood that, but he really left CU hanging. So CU after that take goes to Karl Dorrell. We know how that goes, and now we are in the Coach Prime era. So Tyler, I'm going to ask you, what if Mel Tucker stays and doesn't bolt for Michigan State?
Yeah, I think it's a really fascinating question just because of, like you mentioned in the beginning, that Colorado fans probably pre-December would really still have taken Mel Tucker back. But I think, with the way things have gone under Deion Sanders for the last month and a half, I think CU is in a better place now than they would be if Mel Tucker was the coach. But I still think, obviously, these past 2 seasons under Karl Dorrell wouldn't have been, or 3 seasons, I should say, it wouldn't have been as much of a disaster. 2.5 seasons, I guess, it wouldn't have been as much of a disaster as they were. Although 2020 was pretty good. But you could make an argument that CU would be maybe in the middle of the pack of the Pac-12, maybe in that Oregon State kind of range, maybe on the cusp of being ranked, just because of kind of what Mel was building. But I think CU fans would take the spot they're in now with kind of the national recognition that they're getting, even despite going 1-11 last season, 4-12, 4-8 the year before. I think they would take this spot just because the ceiling is much higher, I think, with Deion Sanders than it would have been under Mel Tucker, albeit I think the floor from Mel Tucker being your coach is higher than Deion Sanders. But I just think if Mel Tucker had been around, you probably you could have seen some steady upward trajectory for CU. Um, but I don't know if they would be reaching. Would have the potential to reach the heights that they do now forever how long Deion Sanders is the coach of the Buffs. But I do think it is really fascinating to kind of just think about, because, and Chris, I'm eager to get your perspective, just kind of because you were here when Mel was here. I wasn't around when Mel was the coach for that one season, but you just look at his one recruiting class that he signed. It was really, really
It
good.
was really good. Yes.
You look at some of the names on there: Christian Gonzalez, who's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft in a couple months. Obviously, Brendan Rice. I mean, Ashad Clayton was one of the highest-rated recruits CU had ever signed. He's now at Tulane, and he could be a key player for them next season after they had a really good year, this year. But even some of the other guys on that recruiting class, some of the chances they took on players, like a Jared Christian Lichtenham, Tank as they call him. He's still at CU. 6'9" or 6'10", they list him out as the tallest player in program history. He's kind of a project, but he's turned into a pretty good left tackle. And I don't know if he's going to play much, with all the guys that have come in this offseason, next season. But he's still a quality, I think, Pac-12 tackle, and he was a guy that wasn't even really ranked at all by any recruiting services. He was merely just a lower 3-star. So you just kind of see the talent evaluation and the guys that Tucker was able to get to CU that they really weren't getting under McIntyre. I think it would have been a steady upper projection, but Mel Tucker's not bringing in Travis Hunter like Deion Sanders has, these last month and a half. So it is really fascinating, Chris. So I'm curious, what do you think CU would look like if Tucker was still the coach?
So yeah, I was working up in Boulder during that time. He just brought something a little different, and I think that's what made CU fans exciting. Like you said, that recruiting class was great. They had excitement. I think Brendan Lewis was on that recruiting class as well, right? Wasn't he a Tucker?
Yeah, he
recruit?
was. He was one of the higher rated guys in the class. He's at Nevada now.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows what Tucker Lewis's career looks like under Tucker and a different, coaching staff. He had Lewis played for multiple offensive coordinators, changing offenses all the time. So who knows what it would have looked like. But yeah, he was another guy that was thought to be the next great CU quarterback when he was signed.
But I really think the thing with CU fans and Mel Tucker was that he was kind of fun. There was the videos of him dancing in the locker room after they won. He wore shorts that time as the coach, which was like the biggest deal ever. I think they were in Tempe playing Arizona State, and he wore shorts, and it was like a big deal. But I think many CU fans thought he was building something, but they still only won 5 games that year. And, they lost some pretty bad games. They got blown out. I mean, Utah was ranked really high. They got blown up by Utah in the finale when they could have been bowl eligible with a win. So, I mean, I don't think he's still the coach now, because I think if he would have had success at CU, he would have got poached by somebody. I really do. But I just think that they got really excited because 5 and 7 seemed great at the time. And we may be going into that this year too. Like the Buffs could go 5 and 7 and people may be thrilled with Coach Prime. It may be a very similar situation. I don't think Coach Prime is bolting at all, but I just think that Mel Tucker couldn't pass up this job at Michigan State. I think if it was any other school, he stays. But with it being Michigan State, I think he was going to go. And, if he would have gotten some more strong recruiting classes, like, you talked about, and we talked about, maybe, like you said, maybe they're middle of the road Pac-12, but I still don't think they're reaching levels that they want to be at.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think, for Mel too, obviously he's probably pretty happy with the money he's making in Michigan State, but I think he's also probably realizing just how hard that job is at Michigan State right now. I don't think, everyone remembers, Michigan State and thinks of Michigan State as this program that should be top 15, top 20 every year. But I just don't think that's the landscape anymore in the Big Ten. I mean, you have the 2 main powerhouses in their class of their own, and Ohio State and Michigan right now. Penn State's probably in a tier below that by themselves, and then everybody else is just kind of behind that, just trying to play catch up. And I think Mel's kind of realizing. Obviously, you mentioned he had a really good first year, and a lot of that had to do with getting Kenneth Walker in, transfer running back, and Heisman candidate. They beat Michigan and they had some big wins, but this past season they didn't even make a bowl game. So I mean, who knows where that program is heading? It's like I said, it's really tough in the Big Ten for any of the non-Ohio State, Michigan teams. Even Penn State has been consistently losing to those programs, and they're easily the third best program in the conference. So maybe it would have been better for Mel just in terms of success to stay at CU, but I mean, obviously he's not going to complain about the paycheck he's getting and being where he's at Michigan State.
So here's the other question: is if Mel Tucker stays as the coach, I don't think we're living in the coach prime era right now. What do you think?
No, I don't think so either. I think everything that happened the last 3 years since Mel, I mean, we're coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Mel bolting at midnight, as you mentioned. I think everything that's happened has been, the perfect confluence of events leading to Deion Sanders being the head coach. I mean, even if Mel Tucker leaves at a normal time during that cycle, I think CU wouldn't have gotten to rock bottom that
Right.
they did under Carl Durrell, because I don't think they would have hired Carl Durrell if Mel Tucker just left at the beginning of December, like when every other coach leaves, instead of after, in the middle of February, after this recruiting class is already signed, and every program in the country is looking ahead to spring ball and the following season. It was just the weird timing. And I think, Rick George was just so, annoyed and mad about the timing of Tucker leaving that he wanted to hire a coach that he knew wouldn't get poached after a year, but also, wanted to, he believed could have success and wanted to stay. And that's why he kind of rushed things with Carl Durrell, who, just had a house in Colorado and wanted to be a head coach again. I mean, Carl Durrell hadn't been coaching. We've talked about this, multiple times in the last couple of months. But Carl Durrell hadn't coached in college for a long time, and it just really didn't make sense. But for Rick George, he wanted somebody that he knew would play out the contract, and obviously he didn't because of how bad they were. But I mean, I don't think if they hire just another up and coming college coach, if Mel leaves at a normal time, I don't think they hit rock bottom like they did this past season, winning just one game and leading to kind of the desperation that, led to the hiring of Deion Sanders, because I do think there were a lot of programs that weren't willing to take a chance on Deion. But CU was desperate enough and willing to pay enough that they got him.
Yeah, and I think, it's also worth mentioning that Durrell was hired right when COVID hit. I mean, really, like that was February 2020, like the next month is when everything, and I can't even remember when they started spring ball, but it was later. They couldn't get together for anything. So, the Carl Durrell era was kind of doomed from the beginning. And I think you're right, is that, if they don't go 1-11, I don't think they say, hey, Deion, here's a blank check.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you're right about, I do think Carl Durrell gets a little bit of some bad rap at times, just because of how people forget about how poorly it started for reasons out of his control. With COVID hitting 2 weeks after his introductory press conference, really kind of the world, crap hit the fan at that point. And nobody knew it was going to be like, I mean, nobody knew if Pac-12 was even going to have football that fall. They did a good job kind of getting the guys together, winning, going 4-2 in the condensed schedule. But I mean, from after that point, it was pretty clear that Durrell wasn't up for this job, and it was heading towards this disaster that ended, after he gets fired after the 0-5 start to the season. And, obviously they'll only win the one game. And now we're here with, Deion Sanders on just about every program, every morning show. He's on the Manning Cast, and it's a new era for Colorado football. And it's all because I feel like the timing of Mel Tucker's decision to leave. I really feel like that more than anything has been the key factor in what's taken place these last 3 years up in Boulder is the timing of Mel Tucker leaving and kind of everything that happened since.
It's crazy, but I think the answer to the question is that the bus would be, I don't know if they'd be in a worse place, but I don't think they'd be as an exciting place as they are right now if Mel Tucker stays. And I think most CU fans will take this excitement any day. So I think our answer is if Mel Tucker stays, there's no Coach Prime. And that may be a crazy conclusion, but I think that both of us agree that that's what would happen.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the ceiling is definitely higher now than it would have been under Mel Tucker. Even if they would have made bowl games the last 2 seasons at 7 wins or 6 wins or whatever under Mel Tucker, I do think just the potential that exists for CU now under Deion Sanders. I mean, it's conceivable to think of anything that could happen over the next couple of years, which obviously is pretty exciting for Buffs fans that haven't had that feeling in quite a long time.
For sure. We'll be talking more about Deion on our podcast. We'll record in a little bit. But Tyler, thanks for coming on. This, like I said, this was episode 5 of What If. Please go to denvergazette.com to see this video and all other videos. And Tyler, we will talk to you again later.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.